Picture this. You are sitting in the passenger seat of a beat-up Chrysler New Yorker. The engine just died in the middle of a four-way stop. And sprinting directly at your windshield are 5 massive, furious guys armed with a baseball bat, a metal crank, and a heavy iron tire jack. Oh, and did I mention there's a trunk full of illegal mushrooms somewhere in the mix? And a police cruiser is about to pull up right behind you. Yeah, that was my Tuesday. We were just supposed to go to a legendary Black Flag concert in West Hollywood. Instead, I almost died in an intersection. Let me back up and tell you how a simple run to drop off some cargo turned into the most terrifying high-speed chase of my life. The sun hadn't even burned the morning haze off the San Gabriel Valley when the phone rang. It was one of those sharp, intrusive rings that signaled a day wasn't going to go according to plan. Alan picked up. It was Greg. Greg always sounded like he was vibrating on a frequency slightly higher than the rest of the world, and today was no different. He had a situation. In the trunk of his battered, rusted-out sedan sat a significant quantity of mushrooms, enough to land him in a state penitentiary for a long, long time. He had a dealer in Hollywood waiting, a run that promised a hefty payday, but there was a catch. I can't take the beater, Alan, Greg's voice crackled over the line. We're heading into a neighborhood where the lawns are manicured and the cops have nothing better to do than pull over cars with mismatched door panels. I need your car. Alan's car was his pride and joy. It was a new Gran Torino with a paint job that looked like an orange sunset. It was polished and it had a growl that commanded respect. Most importantly, it looked like it belonged. After a bit of back and forth, the deal was struck. We'd all meet at Greg's place to coordinate. When we arrived, the air was already thick with the scent of cheap coffee and nervous energy. Greg's girlfriend, Lucky, was there. Lucky was exactly what her name implied, a firebrand who seemed to survive on sheer willpower and a refusal to back down from anyone. While the boys prepped the cargo for the run to the hills, Lucky and I shared a look. We weren't the type to sit around on a floral sofa waiting for our boyfriends to play drug courier. The Starwood, Lucky said, her eyes lighting up. West Hollywood, Black Flag, Social Distortion, and the Descendents, a triple bill tonight. It was the holy grail of punk shows, but there were 2 problems. We didn't have tickets, and we didn't have a reliable ride. Lucky dismissed both concerns with a wave of her hand. She reached into her bag and pulled out a stash of joints the size of small cigars. Who needs tickets, she grinned, when you've got this kind of currency? The plan was set. Alan and Greg would lead in the clean car with the mushrooms. Lucky and I would follow in Greg's old beater. We'd drop the goods, then head straight to the Starwood to barter our way into punk rock history. The drive started normally enough if you consider a 2-car convoy carrying illegal narcotics normal. We were cruising down San Gabriel Avenue, a wide, sun-bleached 3-lane stretch heading south toward the freeway. The heat was starting to shimmer off the asphalt. We pulled up to the red light at Foothill Boulevard. Alan and Greg were on our right. To our left, a car loaded with 5 guys pulled up. They looked like the kind of guys who spent too much time at the gym and not enough time learning how to treat people. They saw 2 girls in a beat-up car and immediately started the routine. Whistling, blowing kisses, making those guttural Neanderthal noises that make your skin crawl. Lucky didn't just ignore them, she turned her head and gave them a look that could have curdled milk. She told them exactly where they could shove their whistles, using language that would have made a sailor blush. In the car beside us, Greg saw it all. He had a protective streak that bordered on the suicidal. Before Alan could stop him, Greg was out of the passenger door. The sight was surreal. One guy, Greg, standing in the middle of a busy intersection, marching toward a car filled with 5 guys who looked like they were looking for a reason to break someone's jaw. "Greg, get back in the car," I shouted, but my voice was lost to the wind. Just as Greg reached their rear bumper, the light turned green. The car full of guys didn't wait. They floored it, tires screaming as they tore across Foothill Boulevard. Greg didn't hesitate. He sprinted back to Alan's car, dived into the already moving passenger seat, and they were off. "Where the hell are they going?" Lucky screamed, slamming the beater into gear. The next 3 minutes were a blur of screaming engines and smoking rubber. We weren't just driving, we were hunting. The car full of guys was weaving through traffic, trying to lose the shiny new car on their trail. Alan, usually a cautious driver, was pushed to the limit by Greg's shouting. They were inches from the lead car's bumper. We were right behind them, the beater groaning under the strain of the high-speed pursuit. Suddenly, the lead car pulled a violent maneuver, hanging a hard right onto West 4th Street. Alan followed. Lucky didn't even tap the brakes. She swung the beater around the corner so hard I felt the tires lift off the pavement. Then came the left onto North Angelino Avenue. We were deep in a residential area now, flying past houses and parked cars at speeds that were frankly terrifying. What none of us saw, what our adrenaline-soaked brains completely failed to register, was the black and white cruiser sitting at the red light on the corner. They had seen all of us flying down the street and around the corner. They were behind us, silent but fast, closing the gap. As we rounded the bend near Memorial Park, we saw the lead car dive into a parking slot near the tennis courts. They were right by a four-way stop. Alan and Greg sped past them. To this day, I remember the look on Alan's face. He was focused on the road, barely tapping his brakes at the stop sign before disappearing down the block. He had the cargo. He couldn't stop. Lucky and I, however, weren't so, lucky. As we reached the four-way stop, Lucky hit the brakes. The beater, old and neglected, didn't handle the sudden change in temperature very well. The engine sputtered, gasped, and died. Silence fell over the car, broken only by the sound of our own panicked breathing, and then the sound of doors slamming. The 5 guys were out of their car, but they weren't blowing kisses anymore. They were at their trunk, pulling out pseudo-weapons. One had a heavy tire jack, another had the long metal cranking handle, a third swung a wooden baseball bat. They started running towards us. "Start the car!" I screamed, my voice cracking. "Lucky, start the car! They're coming!" Lucky was frantically turning the key. Chug, 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 whirr. Nothing. The guys were 20 feet away. I could see the sweat on their faces, the anger in their eyes. They weren't just going to break the car, they were going to break us. Chug, chug, vroom! The engine roared to life. Lucky didn't look for a way out. She didn't try in reverse. She looked at the group of men armed with metal bars, threw the car into drive, and mashed the gas pedal to the floor. She headed the car straight at them. It was a game of chicken that we were destined to win because we had 2 tons of metal and they only had anger. At the very last second, the guys scrambled, diving out of the way of the oncoming grill. I could see them as we flashed past, their heavy objects getting ready to fly through the air. "Duck!" I yelled, throwing myself towards the floorboards. Lucky jerked the steering wheel violently to the left and slammed on the brakes. In the middle of the street at Memorial Park, the beater did a full, violent 360-degree spin. Crash! A heavy metal weight hit the side of the car. They had thrown the tire jack. It felt like a sledgehammer hitting the door. Glass shattered somewhere. The car skidded, tires screaming, and finally came to a halt, facing back the way we came. And that's when the world turned red and blue. The police siren, which must have been wailing for blocks, finally registered in our ears. The cruiser shrieked to a halt right next to the guy's car. The 5 men who seconds ago were ready to commit assault scattered like cockroaches in a kitchen light. They ran in every direction, over fences, through the park, behind the tennis courts. Everything slowed down. The adrenaline began to drain, replaced by a cold, shaking dread. Within minutes, it felt like the entire Azusa police force was on the scene. Canine units, multiple cruisers, officers with flashing lights. They managed to tackle 2 of the guys near the park bushes. As we sat on the curb shaking, Alan and Greg reappeared. They had seen the cops in their rear view and had made a split-second decision. They had raced down to 2nd Street where Alan's parents lived and dumped the cargo in our trailer in the backyard, and then returned to make sure we were alive. Lucky, despite the shock, found her voice. She absolutely lit into Greg. "You left us. You led us right to them and you kept going." Greg's face was pale. He explained the cargo, the reality that if they had stopped with those mushrooms in the car, all 4 of us would be heading to prison, not just jail. It was a cold logic, but in the heat of the moment, it felt like a betrayal. We didn't go to Hollywood that day. There was no Black Flag, no social distortion, no bartering joints for tickets. Instead, we spent the next 6 hours at the Azusa Police Department. We filled out stacks of paperwork, gave statements about the chase, the weapons, and the assault on the car. As we finally walked out of the station into the late afternoon sun, the silence between the 4 of us was heavy. We were safe, but the day had changed something. We had looked into the eyes of a mob, survived a high-speed chase, and dodged a massive legal bullet, all before dinner. The beater was dented with a large hole in the passenger side where the tire jack had landed. Our nerves were fried, and the currency in Lucky's purse remained unspent. We drove home slowly, the legendary punk show at the Starwood happening miles away without us. But honestly, after a 360-degree spin in the face of a tire jack, we'd already had all the punk rock we could handle for one day. Hey out there, this video discusses intense situations involving physical threats, assault, and substance abuse. If you or someone you know has been affected by violence or is struggling with substance use or mental health, please know you don't have to handle it alone. There is free, confidential help available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For immediate emergencies, please call 911 or your local emergency services. You can also call 1-800-662-4357 for the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Line for confidential, free, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year treatment, referral, and information services. You can text the word HOME, HOME, to 741-741 to connect with a volunteer crisis counselor at the crisis text line.